everywhere. So he and his followers began doing that. Before that, they were doing it privately in their homes, but then they began going out into the streets, chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. And that upset many people. It upset what is called the caste brahmanas in the village, because they had a monopoly, on the spiritual life of the people. And this was very revolutionary for Lord Chaitanya to be going out, chanting the Hare Krishna mantra everywhere, bringing in all kinds of people, high caste, low caste, everyone. It was very revolutionary. So some of them who opposed this spiritual revolution that had been started by Lord Chaitanya, they went to the Muslim ruler, the Qazi, because at that time that part of India was under the control of the Muslims. They complained, yes, he's violating all the principles of the Hindu religion by giving this mantra to everyone, regardless of their qualification. And so the Qazi, the ruler, the Muslim ruler, he began to suppress Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. And sometimes he and his police representatives would even go and they'd break the mridangas. Of course, this is still happening today in some parts of the world. We see that sometimes the governments, like most recently in Kazakhstan, they try to stop, the spread of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. So that also happened 500 years ago. So how did Lord Chaitanya reply? Well, he organized a massive civil disobedience movement. He called upon all of his followers to assemble one night and assemble in huge chanting parties to disobey this restriction that had been placed on them. So you could say he was the original promoter of the nonviolent civil disobedience in India, centuries before Gandhi. And it was successful. Actually, the Qazi invited him into his palace and had conversations with him, and at the end, he became a supporter of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement and a devotee himself. Now, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had an older brother named Vishvarupa. And when he reached a certain age, his mother and father, Sachimanta and Jagat Mishra, began to make arrangements for him to become married. And he didn't want to become married, so he left and became a sannyasi, a member of the renounced order of life. So he left home and began to travel all over India as a sannyasi. But once, Chaitanya, little Lord Chaitanya, he had a dream in which his brother appeared to him and said, I want you to come also with me. I want you to also become a sannyasi, a member of the renounced order of life. But Lord Chaitanya told his brother, no, I can't go with you. I am the only child left of my father and mother, and I must take care of them. Who will watch out for them, if not for me? So in this way, he displayed his love for his father and mother, and he remained with them obediently, as their child. And they arranged a marriage for him with a very saintly girl named Lakshmipriya. Of course, she was an incarnation of the goddess of fortune, not an ordinary woman, just as Lord Chaitanya was not an ordinary man. He was the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. But God is a person. Actually, all our activities in this world are reflections of personal activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that go on the spiritual level. Of course, our activities are sometimes perverted reflections of these activities, but God is a person, ultimately. And so, after his marriage, of course, he had to earn some wealth to support a wife and a household. So the way that a Brahmin would earn wealth in those days would be to travel and speak, demonstrate his learning, and then people would give contributions. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he went to East Bengal to do that. But during his absence, his wife felt so much separation from him that it was as if, like a poison snake had bitten her. And actually, on a certain level, that's what did happen. So she left this world out of her immense feelings of grief and separation, from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then a second marriage was arranged with Vishnupriya. So at the Yoga Pit in Mayapur, at that temple that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur built, if you go there, you'll see deity of Lord Chaitanya with Lakshmipriya and Vishnupriya. But then at a certain point, Lord Chaitanya himself took sannyas in his 24th year. And before, he had that beautiful long hair, but now you can see his head is shaved. And he took the renounced order of life because he understood that it was time for him to start his mission of spreading this Sankirtan movement all over India. And he understood that at that time, because the order of sannyas was so respected, that people would give him more respect at that time. So therefore he did that. And his father had already left by this time. So the mother was grief-stricken, because that meant, the sannyasi does not live at home with wife and children or mother and father. The sannyasi is dead to the world in some sense. Just goes everywhere by himself. But to satisfy her, he agreed that he would make his headquarters not far away from Mayapur, but in Puri, here. So Lord Chaitanya went from Mayapur to Jagannath Puri, which is a very famous city on the Gulf of Bengal. It's the site of a very famous temple of Krishna called the Temple of Jagannath. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he went to the temple of Jagannath. And he went into total ecstasy there, seeing that deity of Krishna. And he remained there for a long time. He would participate in the annual Ratha Yatra festival, just like we have that festival here in Los Angeles every summer. But the original festival of the chariots was held in Jagannath Puri, and you can see here it's a huge festival. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his followers would yearly participate in that festival, making huge Sankirtan parties for chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. And also, in addition to this mass chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, he would also speak individually with philosophers. For example, there was Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who was the head of the impersonalist philosophers in Jagannath Puri. Of course, there are two schools of thought about the nature of the Supreme Lord in India. One is that ultimately there is no personality. Personality is